Hello, my name is Len David Livesey, and I'm your full spectrum Gnostic. This is Knowledge from Beyond, and I have a very exciting podcast for you today. We're talking about something a lot of people like UFOs from ancient times and today. So, this is a very big topic because a lot of people believe that UFOs are a modern thing. They think UFOs just started because we're watching too much TV and too much Star Trek and Star Wars and Lost in Space and this and that. They don't realize that this goes back very, very, very far. Okay. Now, how far back do this go? Most people believe it only goes back to 1947. That is when the modern UFO era started. And what started the modern UFO era was the crash at Roswell, as we all know. And since the crash at Roswell, uh, we've been discussing UFOs. You had the UFO craze back in the 50s, and then it died down. You had it in the 60s, and then, it's been going in and out. But UFOs have been on our mind ever since 1947. So most people believe, and even if you look it up on Google, they talk about after that date. But most people don't know UFOs was even talked about before that date. Around the turn of the century, you had these flying machines that was written up all over the country that people were seeing in the air. Around 20 years before the Wright, right before the Wright brothers flew in the 1880s, 1890s. The Wright brothers didn't fly until around 20 years after that flaps got started. But that was not the beginning either. On this show, we'd like to go back to the beginning. So, how far back are we going to go? Okay. You can go back to Christopher Columbus. When he came to America, he didn't discover America. As we all know, there was already millions of people living here. But on his ships, he recorded that there was several things in the air that he recorded before he spotted land. Okay. And in those days, there couldn't have been these things in the air that he was recording. Are we going to go back further than that? We can go back to Alexander the Great. Okay. Alexander the Great talked about these things in the air. And he even talked about in one of his reports about when he was trying to conquer the known world, he was trying to conquer one city and he couldn't knock down the gates of the city. And then this flying shield, as he called it, flashed this beam of light, and the city walls collapsed. Okay. We can go back further than that. We can go back to the Israelites in their 40 years or 40 nights in the wilderness or in the desert. And the Bible talked about that during the day there was a cloud that protected them from that followed them, that protected them from the heat of the sun, and at night that whatever that was illuminated their path. What was that? Okay. This thing that was with them for the 40 years they was in the wilderness. That's in the Bible. Okay. And it was a luminance. Okay. You can go further back to that. You can go back to Thutmose the First of Egypt. He talked about that there was these flying things in Egypt. He thought they was that they were sent from the gods. That he wrote about. You can go further back than that. You can go back to the Hindu text. When you get into the Gita, And you talk about Vimanas and all kind of flying craft that they had. And all over the world, in every language, in every, tribal tongue, they have a name for those things in the air. Okay. And some of these tribes are isolated. You can go to the Amazon, you can go to the deepest parts of Africa, wherever, the jungles of Southeast Asia. They have names for those things that fly in the air. And they talk about those things. Some of them call them the visitors. Some of them says they're they're gods. Some of them say they're watchers. They have different names and they describe them all differently. We can go back further than that. We even have cave drawings of what looks exactly like what we see today of UFOs. Now, this is a painting that's behind me right now, which is one of dozens of artwork that was painted hundreds of years ago showing disc in the air. And the slideshow I'm showing is showing different pictures, modern pictures, ancient pictures of these circular things that people have seen in the air. They have drawn pictures of, they have done everything. Okay. Some people believe that, what we believe today, that these are alien beings. Some Christians believe that they're demons, the fallen angels. In ancient times, like in this artwork behind me, they always acquainted UFOs as like angels or something. Because a lot of these paintings, when they're showing pictures of Jesus or of the disciples, they always put these floating things in the air. So maybe they thought they was angels. Okay. What did people back in prehistoric times think? We don't know. But they have always been there. Okay. Even the American Indians talk about the Kachinas that came down, the people from the stars who came down and talked to them. This is what the word Anunnaki means, those who came down. Okay. That's what Nephilim mean, those who came down. Okay. So this goes back very, very far. But as we talked about before, these beings, since they've always been here, if they wanted to kill us and destroy us, they have had thousands and thousands of years to do this. If they, like, here's a one from Egypt right there. If they wanted to help us in our wars, Alexander the Great said that they helped him. According to Hitler and the Nazis, they was getting a lot of their information, according to Nazi records, from from people that was located from the star Aldebaran, and they was getting a lot of their technology and information from them. They said they was also getting information from people that lived inside the earth. Okay. Or you can just say this is all just craziness. These are all just hallucinations. This is all swamp gas, ball lightning. Ball lightning is super scary. We need to do a video. We need to do a podcast on ball lightning. Ball lightning is even more scary than UFOs. Okay. But if it's mass hysteria and hallucinations, how can it be a global event? How can people all over the world have names for these things? Okay. And how come these things have been here for so long? like you can see there seems to be proof and evidence that our military not only know about these things, but they're actually seem to be working with them. Because sometimes you see military jets and helicopters and other things with these craft. This is the strange thing that people talk about in abductions. That in some abductions, they talk about the beings with the giant eyes and this and that, but in some abductions, they talk about not only did they see, what we perceive today as being aliens, people also talk about they see people in military uniforms. Okay. And they look like people in military uniforms today. So maybe they're working together. Okay. Most people don't know that the word king, the kings and queens that ruled on this planet for thousands of years. We only have one queen left, that's Queen Elizabeth. The rest of them is basically, besides in Thailand, is the only two giant monarchs which are still standing. But they're supposed to be, and all the kings and queens have always said there's God's representative on earth. And they rule with approval of God. Okay. Is that true or not true? Well, that's what they say. But these things have always been here. Also, it has been recorded that whatever these things are in the air, that sometimes they take people. People think that alien abduction is a new thing. That just started with, we're not even going back to 1947. If you look up alien abduction, it will say that started with Betty and Barney Hill in the 1960s. But there's cave drawings of people being abducted. There's books about people being taken up in a whirlwind. It's called the Bible. Okay. There's other books talking about people being air transported, or people doing this, or people being taken up into the clouds and all of this stuff. This stuff has been recorded for thousands of years. Again, we're to the point, why are they here and what do they want? They, even after thousands of years, see, here's one, this picture is a cave drawing. Look, it looks exactly like what we see today. You might think, now, cave people, they didn't have Netflix. They didn't have 200 channels. How come they could draw something that looks exactly like what we see today? And that's what is very strange about these craft. They have changed very little over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And even though today people are still taking pictures of them. See, that's the difference today. Before, people would say, I saw this thing in the air, and you didn't believe them because they didn't have a camera. By the time they went home and got their camera and this and that and everything, it was gone. Since we're all today walking around with a cell phone, and cell phones have cameras today, you can go on YouTube and there's just, there's so many pictures. They're everywhere. And yes, some of them are fake. You know how people like to do things, okay? But you can't say all of them are fake. And this is a universal event that's been going on for thousands of years. But they just hover like that. They're not shooting beams. They're not trying to take over. They're not, we all seen these alien invasion movies and this and that. And Some people believe that the aliens are going to be invading very soon, but if they've been here for thousands and thousands of years, why would they wait for us to get nuclear weapons before they attack us? And they say, no, we don't want to attack them when they just have bow and arrow and swords. That wouldn't be fair. Okay. We want to wait until they get high technology, and then we want to attack them. Okay. I don't think so. And in most of these pictures, in most accounts, these things are just hovering in the air, doing nothing. That's the reason why some people believe that they are the watchers, because they just sit there and watch. Okay. Now, what are they watching for? What are they doing? Like they're over that neighborhood right there. Why are they over the house? Are they there to pick up someone? Are they there to drop off? Are they the UPS of outer space? We don't know. See, it seems like whatever they're doing, they're busy doing something. What they're doing is the same thing the military does. You look up in the air and you see a military jet flying overhead. Sometimes you see, two or three jets together and they're going super fast. And where they're going and what are they doing, and they don't stop and tell you. They're just doing what they're doing. Because they seem to be doing something that we are not aware of. Maybe they are recording and watching our movements. Some people believe that these are time travelers. Some people believe that they're here because they're watching things. See, maybe they're over the pyramids because they know something is buried in that sand over there. Okay. And maybe just like when you're poking around where you shouldn't be, helicopters come and things like that. See, maybe even a long time ago, they thought these things was not, natural. They was being, manned or controlled. Now, we have had reports like Billy Meyer and whatever, where some of these discs actually land and let you get on board. And this was the big things back in the 50s. They would get you on the ships, and they would take you to Venus and take you to the different planets. And you got a chance to see, their cities and whatever. We don't really get reports of that anymore. Nobody is taken to Venus anymore. Maybe they don't want us to see their cities anymore. Okay. But they're just hovering. And they hover above very weird places. UFOs love to hover around government buildings, historical sites. They like to hover above our major cities. They love to hover above military bases. Okay. It's like they're looking for something, or maybe they're setting their invasion plans. Okay. But they have always been there, just hovering and just watching. And this has been going on for a very, very long time. So, will this continue? If they're here, some people believe that the aliens are here to assist us, to give us knowledge. They haven't seemed to have helped us with the coronavirus. While we've been sick and arguing over should you take the vaccine or not, they've just been hovering there watching. Okay. Right? If they was here to assist us, even in the middle of World War II and in the Vietnam War and all these conflicts, people have taken pictures and saw these things just hovering overhead. They're just always hovering. Now, one thing people say these can't be real. Look at that. Seems like they're working together. Who knows? But one thing people have noticed that these things they're all similar in shape, but they differ. And that's one thing critics says that UFOs can't be real because if they was all real, they would be exactly the same. They wouldn't vary. Okay. And since they vary in design and in shape and this and that, this proves that they're not real. And I tell people, look at that one. That's from the Aztecs. I tell people that's probably true because if cars was real, they would all look alike. They wouldn't all vary in shape and color and style and this and that if cars was real. Because if we just needed, you know, transportation, we would all make our cars look alike and they would be the same. No, what it proves by them being different, it proves that it is a real event because these things are being manufactured. And with anything that's being manufactured, you have different styles and different vehicles and different designs and whatever. And maybe different shapes go in and out of style. We don't know. They might even have different companies designing these things. Ford, Chrysler, General Motors. Okay. Okay. We don't know, but they vary in shape and design slightly all over the world, but they're all the same. They're all circular. Okay. Now, some people have had the privilege of getting on board. Some people get up there the hard way, where they wake up and they're actually on a table. Oh, and these beings are standing over you. That is not a good way to get on one of these ships. But some people have actually walked into these ships, and they all say the same thing. When we look at these things in the air, these ships look very small. 5 feet, 10 foot, 12 feet, 20 feet. But people that have actually been in these crafts, they say when you get inside, they're enormously large and they have all of these rooms and compartments. How can something that appear in the air to be so small, the size of an airplane, be very large in size and have compartments? That does not make sense. Because something like that maybe could fit 2, 3 people at best. I guess you could squeeze, one or two more, but you're not going to have rooms inside. So these things are using technology, or maybe they're not even here. Maybe they're from another dimension or whatever. Because how come something super small on the outside, when you go inside, can be enormously large? And people talk about corridors and hallways and this and that. Very, very, very strange. Okay. And these reports about what people have seen inside of these craft, people have been talking about this for an extremely long period of time. And now we seem to have some idea of the propulsion system. Before, people were saying these things can't real because they don't have propellers and they don't have this and that. Today, we are slowly catching up with technology with these things. Okay. And they seem to be flying on some kind of anti-gravity device, magnetic proportion, uh, uh, a propulsion. This is what they seem to be working on. And people say, but Lynn, this can't be real because we don't have anything like that. But we've been working on antimatter and things and gravitational, uh, you know, propulsion systems ever in America that we know of ever since the 60s. But really, it goes back all of that because some of these crafts, look at that one. Some of these crafts look exactly like after World War II, we discovered very detailed Nazi drawings of these hullabaloo crafts. And these hullabaloo Nazi craft looked very extremely similar to some of the things we see in the air. Okay. And that's the reason some people say that these things in the air is, that's the reason the modern UFO era is nothing but these German craft. But how can you explain that craft floating above Mexico City? I guess the German got time travel and they went back hundreds or thousands of years in history. Or maybe we are just reverse engineering what we see in the air. But a lot of things happen that way. This is what happened in the UFO flap that was in the late 1800s. I mean, around the turn of the century, in the 1880s, 1890s. They were seeing craft that had like wings and things. Okay. And then 20, 30 years later, the Wright brothers made a craft that had wings. See, a lot of times it's just like if you look at Star Trek or a lot of these shows, they show us things and then they actually come true 20, 30, 40 years later. That's the reason why some people believe that these are actually time travelers from the future. Because we have found things that look like cell phones and other devices. We have found electronic devices that are thousands of years old. And how can there be electronic devices and all kind of stuff and things that look like computer chips, which are thousands of years old? Or maybe technology that we think is modern technology today existed before. And maybe there is no new discoveries. Maybe we are just rediscovering things that existed several times before. Okay. We also discovered that these things that hover in the air, we also see these things in the water. And people, see, most of us stay close to land. It's safer that way. But, you have people, especially mariners, and you have people that's on these, oil tankers and on these cargo ships. They talk about things they have seen in the middle of the night and these giant luminous lights they see in the ocean. Okay, and things that they see rising out of the ocean and going into the ocean and this and that. And this has been talked about forever. Look at this old picture. This is before the invention of the airplane. There's still something flying in the air. There have always been things. We have never been alone. And this is the reason why we are trying now to find proof of alien life. And we're looking on all these outer planets and trying to look with the Tesla telescope and the distant galaxies and everything and looking, hundreds of light years away, thousands of light years away. But the aliens are right here. They have been here. Okay. They have always been here. And this is what the Anunnaki talked about. The Anunnaki talked about when they first came here, we wasn't here, the dinosaurs was here. Okay. But are they just here just to watch over us? But that's even talked about in the Bible. The Bible talks about, and going back further than the Bible, you go to the book of Enoch. It talks about that when God left the earth, he appointed 600 watchers to watch over the earth. The question, why did the earth need to be watched over? Is there something out there that was threatening the earth? So we had to put watchers to watch over us? Is that what the UFOs are doing today? Are they watching over us? Okay. Are they keeping us safe? Are they protecting us? Maybe they are protecting us against other people from other planets. They don't seem to be protecting us from ourselves. Because when we had our World War I and World War II and all of our other crazy wars, they did not interfere. But maybe they're doing what is talked about on Star Trek, that they have a non-interference thing. They're just here to see the animals do what they're going to do. And just like when you go to the zoo and you see the monkeys fighting and whatever, nobody breaks up the fight. Okay, we're just there to watch the monkeys. Okay. But let's go into some possibilities. If these are time travelers, and if in the year 2413, you was able to purchase a time to go back to, would you want to go back? And would you pay money or whatever they're using at that time to go back and see the pandemic of 2020? Okay. Would you go back to see the Titanic sinking? Would you go back to see 9/11? What would you pay money to go back and see? If that's why they're here. Because a lot of times people reports, and this has been reported several times, before there is something major happens, like before there's a major volcanic eruption, or before there's a major earthquake, or a major, catastrophe, people start seeing things in the air. And this is what happened right before 9/11 in New York City. People started seeing a lot of stuff hanging around in the air. Okay. Were they there to get a good seat on what was going to happen? They didn't try to save anybody. Maybe they're just here to watch and to observe. This gets into reports of alien abduction. A lot of people report when they're abducted, they just do medical tests on people and then they let them go. Isn't that the same thing we do with deer and bears? We shoot them with a pellet gun and we throw them in the back of a pickup truck or on a helicopter. We run our little medical test. We stick a tag in their ear and we release them. And that bear go and tell the other bears, hey, guess what happened to me? And there he goes again, talking those crazy stories. Okay. Maybe Maybe the earth is nothing but a giant exhibit. That is that ring inside of a ring. Okay. We don't know a lot of things, but they're here. I do not believe the UFOs are a threat to us. Because if they wanted to get rid of Lynn Livesey, or if they wanted to get rid of you, or if they wanted to take out the president, or take out France or Germany, or take out whatever, nobody's stopping them. In the movies, we are able to, pull up our F-16s and our little jets, and we're able to defeat the aliens. But if these beings are able to cross, thousands of light years of space, and can just, and do the little tricks they do, and when fighter jets try to pursue these craft, they play a little game. They let the craft get right before they're in shooting range. Then it takes off at thousands of miles an hour, and it goes from right in, almost in sight of their missiles, to where it's gone instantly. And sometimes they want to play the game, like right there. Is their game is not our game. Some people believe that the U.S. government and other governments are now producing UFOs. That's the reason you see pictures like that now. Because maybe not all, and that's what they tell you, that everything in space is not alien. Because maybe we have UFOs today. Okay. But what was going on back there? The picture behind me. Were they working with the Catholic Church? Were they working with different people? There's a crashed one in Russia. Sometimes these craft come down. And there's reports of these things crashing all over the world. But for some reason, whenever they crash, within a matter of days, all evidence, or sometimes within a matter of hours, all evidence is gone. Okay. And this gets into reports of men in black. Sometimes people recover a piece. There's been people, for example, that have saw something fall from one of these craft, and they have it. And no one knows that they have it. And then they get a knock on the door. And it's these people that they look human, but they really don't look human. They just look kind of strange. And they want to talk to you about that piece you have. And you say, what piece? They want to talk to you about that picture you took. They want to talk to you about this or that, and you didn't tell anybody. And you're like, I don't have nothing. I didn't do this. And then you go back to look for the piece, and it's gone. Isn't that strange? And a lot of times, also, even in remote areas, when people say something weird fell out of the air, it wasn't a comet, was it this or that, this thing fell, this is what happened, all over the place. Then they talk about, as soon after it happened, within hours or minutes, the military was there. And they roped off the whole area, this and that, and then they was gone. And then you ask, what was that about? What about? There was nothing. We was never hearing that. There's no reports of whatever. No, it was this or that. And this hasn't been going on today. This has been going on for a very, very, very long time. Maybe the UFOs have a, but just like we have AAA, maybe they have AAA too. If one of their craft goes down, they have AAA to go and get it. Maybe we're working with AAA with them, and we help them to recover their craft, and who knows? But there's no way, with all these pictures, with all the people that have seen things, especially today, now that we have just millions of pictures. Before, pictures was hard to come by. Today, they're everywhere. You can no longer say, this is swamp gas. This is ball lightning. This is mass hysteria. You can't take a picture of mass hysteria with a cell phone camera. And now the government, first it was governments over there, and the French government and the British government, and now even the United States government has admitted that there's things in the air and they don't know what they are. That's exactly the opposite of what they told us in Project Blue Book. They said there's nothing in the air. And all these reports are misidentifications. Now it took them 50 years to go from we're making it up, there's nothing in the air. Today, the government, the Pentagon, the CIA have admitted that there are things in the air, and they do not know what they are. And they're still doing the same things in the air that they've been doing for thousands of years. They just hover there. Okay. This is a real phenomenon. This is why on this podcast, for people that say, I don't believe UFOs is real, and I don't believe this and that, and I don't believe that, it's just like there's nothing you can do with these people. After millions of photographs and in paintings and all kind of stuff, that people keep thinking that they still don't believe it. There's nothing you can do for the non-believers. But if you have ever seen one of these things in the air, it is a life-changing experience. When I was a little kid, I was born in Dayton, Ohio, around 10 miles from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. At that time, that is where Strategic Air Command used to be located. They had nuclear missiles at Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I did not know that. I just knew as a kid we had these giant planes flying overhead. I didn't know what B-52 bombers were. I didn't know anything. Okay. But one time I saw this little tiny round thing in the air. It was around the size of a marble. And this thing took off across the sky. And then you had 2 or 3 fighter jets chasing after this thing with their afterburners on. Then after that, you had around another 2 or 3. They was really chasing that thing. They wasn't even getting close. And I didn't find out until later about the strange stuff that was going on at that Air Force base. That's where they supposedly had the hangar that they stored all of the alien stuff and everything before they moved it out to the desert. Okay, as the old book says, everything was moved to the desert. We now know today where the desert is. It's called Area 51. Okay. But when I was a kid, there was reports of all kind of stuff. People would see all kind of stuff around those bases. Yeah, some of that stuff was classified military aircraft. Some of it was stuff. But when you start seeing things, okay, It changes you. That's the reason as a kid, I was a big believer. And, I thought I was heading towards this future of spandex jackets and we was going to live like the Jetsons and whatever, because I grew up with those strange things in the air and the Air Force doing all kind of stuff and the Air Force Museum. And, you know, the future seemed so bright, so clear. And we was, you know, going to the moon, and we was going to go to Mars, and we was going to build a giant space station in space, and we was going to do everything. I wanted to be a part of that future. And then everything just stopped. And for a long time, nobody cared about space. Today we got Tesla, and now we're supposed to be going back to the moon and this and that. We're restarting all the dreams again and whatever. And I'll believe it when we get there. Because we went there from having nothing to go to the moon in a very short span, in less than 10, 12 years. And we've been talking about going through the moon. You know, George W. Bush was the first one to say we was going back to the moon. That was how many presidents back? And we're still not there yet. Okay. And it might be one or two more presidents before we get back over there. How come it took taking us so long? And we got there so quick before. Maybe we're already there. Maybe the secret space program. You know, some of these hackers have discovered all kind of stuff about, things we have in space, and supposedly we have bases on the moon, and we have this and that, and people have leaked all kind of stuff over the last decade or two. Stuff that want to curl your toes. But when will they ever let us know the truth? Why must it remain a secret? Why they want to keep us in the dark? It was written in the 1960s that if we ever discovered there was alien life, and there was civilization and creation beyond the earth, that all institutions, all of society would go crashing down immediately. I do not believe that today. And if they announced that UFOs was real today, well, maybe, if you got General Motors stock, that might go down by 10, 20%. But I bet you aerospace stocks would go up by 2,000%. It's like everything else. Okay. I don't think people would climb up to the top of their houses and jump off because, they announced, UFOs are real. Okay. I think they don't want us to know the truth because it's all about control and manipulation. They want us to focus on the things we need to focus on, the important things in life. Paying taxes, holidays, Halloween's coming up, Christmas is coming up. There's an election coming up. There is football season, is basketball season, is this and that, back to school. If we found out about all of this other stuff, if we knew that aliens was real, if we know UFOs was coming from Alpha Centauri or 20 light years away, or coming from the star Aldebaran and all this stuff, would you still want to buy a Dallas Cowboy ticket this week? Okay. Maybe, see, look at this picture. This is 6,000 years ago. It's things floating in the air. This is Sumerian text. This is why they can't tell us. They think our minds are that shallow. And the only way we can buy the new iPhone is to keep us focused on the BS of what's going on here. Because, and they might be right about that. Because why would you want to buy a new iPhone if you knew UFOs were real? You might want to put that purchase. So they do have some reasons for doing this. Because we all want to move to the next level. Human civilization is ready for the big leap in technology. And this is what happens every time technology is held back until something pushes us over the edge. Okay. And normally it's war. This is why at the beginning of World War I, we had one set of technology. And by the end of the war, everything was different. And in a span of just a few years, technology dramatically increased. Same happened in World War II. Think about the jets and the technology at the beginning of the war versus at the end of the war. In a very short period of time, we dramatically increased in technology. Okay. You know what would happen to technology? Think about how fast time has speeded up in the last 10, 20 years with computers and this and that and everything else. And a lot of this computers and stuff is not new. It all came about because of the space race. That's where the first computers was created for, to help us get to the moon. And things like microwaves and this and that and all this stuff today we take for granted was all created as part of getting us to the moon. It is estimated that the federal government, the secret space program, the black budget projects and all this stuff, that the military is at least 50 to 75 years ahead of where me and you are. Okay. The Navy has just announced they're going to but they're building a ship that's going to have laser beams, that's going to be able to knock down missiles and rockets. To us, that's the things of science fiction. But the military is already working on it. There's so many things that to us, the dummies of the world, that they need to keep from us. The military has been working on gravitational propulsion ever since we know at least the 1970s. Okay. You know, we don't know what they're doing. But they're holding back civilization by not letting people know. And the danger of what they're doing by keeping us out of the loop is what happened in Rome. As I said so many times before, if you had a time machine and went back to ancient Rome in the days of Jesus, most Romans lived in apartment blocks that were 6 stories tall. They had running water. They had sewer systems. They drank out of glasses. They had windows in their house. They had glass in their windows. They had all kind of stuff. 100 years later, they was shitting and drinking in the river and living in straw houses. Because all the technology of Rome, with all their giant fountains and this and that and their coliseums and everything, only a few people knew how that stuff worked. And today we have the ruins of the Roman coliseums. The Roman Colosseum is equal to the technology of a football stadium today. How come the Romans had that technology 2,000 years ago? The Roman aqueducts and the aqueducts in, that the Aztecs had and several other people around the world is equal to, some people would say even better than the source systems and waste systems that we have today. Okay. There are bridges in Europe that are 400 or 500 years old, and they're still standing. And a lot of our modern bridges today fall apart after 50, 60, 70 years. They collapse. It seems like we're not getting smarter. Okay. But that is our future we see hovering above our heads. That is the direction we need to go in, is that direction. Okay. But just like with all revolutions, when the industrial age first started, especially in England, a lot of people was burning the factories down because they thought to mechanize things and replace animals was bad. Okay. When computers and things first came out, a lot of people thought that was bad. Okay. A lot of people don't want progress. You still have Quakers and Mormons today that still have their little horse-drawn carriages. I guess you can be one of them too. Okay. But even the Taliban, that when they first came into existence, didn't want anything modern and wanted the whole country to live like it was back in the days of Muhammad. That was the old Taliban. The new Taliban, they got all the high-tech stuff that we left behind. Okay. They learned the lesson of not accepting progress the hard way. Okay. What would it be if we accepted progress? If they let that store case of knowledge that's been floating, look, it's a UFO on a coin from the 1700s. This is crazy. They say man is not ready. The only reason man is not ready and will never be ready is because our governments, Democrat, Republic, Communist, Socialist, everybody in the world want to hold man back so we can be controlled and manipulated. Those days are quickly coming to an end. So they can either open the books or we're going to open them ourselves. And this is what the disclosure movement about. And this is why lately there's so many people breaking they signed all those papers. They would not talk. They would not do this. Today, people are throwing the papers away. They don't care. We need to move forward. We need to embrace our inheritance, our future, which is hovering above our heads. Okay, that is our future. And one day, hopefully soon, that will be us. We don't need to get in planes that was, the planes we fly around today are almost identical to the planes that they was flying in the 1950s. Aviation have changed very little. If you look at a car today and look at a car from the 1930s, it have changed very little today. They don't want us to change. Cars in the 1920s was getting the same gas mileage that we get today. People say, hey, we can't do better. That's the best we can do. No. In the year 2238, we'll still be getting 18, 22 miles a gallon. Okay. It's terrible. We need to embrace the future. We need to embrace what is going on around us. We need to embrace our future. And we have a very bright future. And the UFOs is a part of our future because those are, our planetary isolation is coming to an end. Okay. And our children is going to live in a world totally different from how we lived. And a lot of people are not ready. They wasn't ready when racial segregation came to an end. They don't like the mixing of the races. How are they going to take it when your neighbor is from reticuli, or you have aliens we already have aliens living among us, but they're living among us in secret. The days of hiding in the closet is coming to an end. And this is our last picture. You see what they thought in the Middle Ages. They thought Christ was going to return on a UFO. Okay. I'm not saying that is true. I didn't draw this picture. This is a very strange picture indeed. But look at that. That is what they believed. They wasn't fearful of alien invasion. They actually wanted an alien invasion. They wanted the return of Christ. Okay. On his UFO. That's very scary. That's okay. Today, that is not what people is thinking about. But remember, they are seeing the same craft in the air today that we saw thousands of years ago. But they went from the belief that they are craft of God, and today a lot of people will tell you UFOs are aliens and demons. The craft have not changed. They're doing the same thing they have always have done. The only thing that have changed is us. We have changed. And we need to get back to where we need to be. We need to move from the third dimensional life to fourth to fifth. We need to advance mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. My name is Lynn David Livesey, your full spectrum Gnostic. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope to see you again very soon. Have a nice one.